Well, a very warm welcome to RPTV. It is RSA Chase time on our ante-post series. Nick Watts, Graham Obway joining me as usual. Well, great to see you then, gentlemen. Now, this ante-post market all revolves around one horse called Dynast. Now, you can't fault what he's done. It may be an unfair comparison, Nick, but I just see deja vu of Grand Cru all over again. He's the 5-2 favourite. How do you sum him up now?
Well, I'm perfectly happy now than you know exactly when I was when I put him up. Obviously, he's 14-1, then he's 5-2 now. So you know, obviously, Nick's a good price there. But 3 runs over fences, he's done absolutely nothing wrong. Cheltenham first time out, beat Fingal Bay, beat Union East 8.5 lengths off level weights. That's what Union East has to make up for the longer trip. Very impressive at Newbury. Beat Caught in Motion as a future Grade 2 winner. And then the Cheltenham, we all saw that on Boxing Day, was superb. A lot of people thought this horse wouldn't stay. There was a lot of debate before the Cheltenham because he's shown a lot of speed in his previous 2 starts. But he's twice a winner at 3 miles. And you look back to his fixed brush win over hurdles last season. I think that was evidence enough that he does definitely stay, because I was just looking through the race again earlier on the Racing Post website. And the comments were, early pace seemed honest, always full of running, showed no signs of stopping, and was galloping on all the way to the line. And there were some warriors in behind him that day, including synchronised future Gold Cup winner, some really strong stayers. So I think that anybody who thinks he doesn't stay, I think that's a red herring. I think he does. I think the Cheltenham would have found him out if he hadn't have stayed. The ground was terrible that day. And as you saw in the King George later on, horses like Q-Card stopping in the ground, speed horses. I think if Dynast hadn't have stayed that day, it would have shone through. But he's very strong from the last. And I think that's the important comparison to make with Grand Cru. When he won his Cheltenham, he was very weak from the final fence to the line. He allowed Silviniaco Conti to get within, I think, a couple of lengths of him, having looked as though he's going to win easily. Dynast, when he went to the front in the home straight, or before the home straight, I think he did, kept on relentlessly, never ever looked like getting caught. His jumping was as good over the last 2 as it was during the race, so he obviously wasn't tired, finished full of running. And yeah, he's a deserving market leader, I think, at 5-2. The only problem, you know, one interesting thing about him, if you are looking for negatives about him, the only negative I can find is the 2 times he's run in March for David Pipe, he's disappointed. Once was at Sandown. Fair enough, that was off top weight in a Grade 3 hurdle, so and he was younger then, so he wasn't the horse he is now. And then last year he was facing up against big bucks in the World Hurdles. So I think that's forgivable. It's only a minor little niggle, but, you know. Could be an early season horse. He's shown such good form in the early season. You do wonder, and I'm not sure the Pipe's assertion that he's going to leave him off now till the RSA is a good one. I always like to see them have a run in January or February. We're not going to do that. So if you're asking me if I would back him now, I wouldn't, because we're not going to see him again before Cheltenham, and he's 5-2, so he's short enough. But do I think he can win? Yes, I think he can definitely win.
Graham, Cheltenham winners don't have a particularly great record going on to the RSA. I mean, do you see Dynast bucking that trend?
Well, I think the reason they don't have a very good record is possibly because the Cheltenham is a bit more of a test of speed than the RSA is. The RSA Chase tends to be won by pretty slow horses who stay very well, with the odd exception here or there. And the Cheltenham tends to be won coming off that home turn at Kempton. If you can get clear off that home turn, it's very difficult to get caught. But horses that have been placed in the Cheltenham running on have come on to win the RSA. You look at Bosworth last year, look at Trebolden. So it's not a terrible trial for the race. It's very hard to knock Dynast, really, because he's done absolutely nothing wrong. He's thrashed Union East at Cheltenham earlier in the season off level weights, albeit he should have been giving Union East weight, because Union East was only a 4-year-old at the time, I think, or a 5-year-old. But then he's gone on and won next time at Newbury, and he's won nicely in the Cheltenham. I think he's the one to beat. I don't really see why he won't stay. Although that Cheltenham race is more of a test of speed, he was staying on really strongly towards the line, exactly what he says. And the only thing that is nagging in the back of everyone's mind is Grand Cru last year.
Perhaps it is an unfair comparison.
It might be unfair. Grand Cru went off 6-5 last year, and Dynast is 5-2, and they're very, very similar. So it'd be interesting to see whether Dynast goes off quite as short as Grand Cru does. But
would you back him at 5-2 now?
Would I back it at 5-2? No, and seeing as Watts has got 14-1 about him, I hope that he goes for the Ryanair.
The juicing.
The juicing.
Well, it's good to see there's a loving spirit in the studio there then. Willie Mullins, Graham, has numerous entries in this. Now, I know you're keen on one of them to actually perhaps pip Dynast to the winner's medal here. Now, which one is it?
Boston Bob, I've backed. Fits the profile, very slow, but stays well.
I'm totally unconvinced by this horse. Didn't get the job done when he was most people's banker at Cheltenham last year. His chase debut was nothing short of shambolic, and he's 6-1 to win a Grade 1 at the Cheltenham Festival. I must be seeing a different horse, I think.
I think last year, a lot of people are going to say, well, he flopped. But I think that is not true at all. I think he ran an absolutely fantastic race to finish second to a horse that, ill-fated though it was, Brindisi Breeze, had the potential to be a real superstar. And you look at that race, it's a really, really strong race, form-wise, the Albert Bartlett last year. Love Chen, the Druid's Nephew, Mount Benbob and Rocky Creek, Fox Appeal, all well behind. And a really interesting stat that I've got for you in this one is that since the Albert Bartlett became a Grade 1 in 2008, the first year that horses were eligible to then go on and run in the RSA after running in the Albert Bartlett was 2009. There's been 4 run-ins of the RSA since. 3 winners actually contested the Albert Bartlett the previous year, and 2 won the Albert Bartlett, Weapons Amnesty and Bobsworth obviously last year. So the Albert Bartlett really is turning into the trial in some respects for this race. A much, much better trial for this race than the Feltham is, for example. He was a bit disappointing first time out when sent off 1 to 5 for a 2-mile, 4-furlong novice chase at Navan, and made hard work. I've been also, I think it's called You Must Know Me or something like that. But the front 2 came well clear of the third. They were 37 lengths clear. He jumped well that day, which was all I want to see on debut from a chaser. And it's going to be a typical Willie Mullins. You know, he's going to bring him along slowly.
May run the
Mullins was a little bit disappointed that day, but it might turn out that the horse that was second, half a length behind, might be useful. I know he's been beaten since, but that can't have been his running because he was well beaten since. They were well clear of the rest. He's just got the absolute perfect profile for me of a RSA Chase winner. He's just a dour stayer who jumps well. He's very uncomplicated. He's always been highly regarded. And hopefully, if he goes and wins a trial before, he'll be a lot shorter than the 7 to 1 available now. I can see him easily being 7 to 2.
Coming down to the final fence, and You Must Know Me on the near side. Boston Bob the far side, and over it, they're over together. Boston Bob on the far side of You Must Know Me, who's trying to rally on the stand side as they run up towards the finish. And Boston Bob made to work hard for his victory and will score by half a length from You Must Know Me. Well,
okay then, so that is Boston Bob is Graham's idea of the winner in the RSA Chase. Paul Nicholls, 3-mile chasers. We should mention him, of course. Rocky Creek, Union East, but his 2 protagonists for this one. Now, Rocky Creek's got some smart form this year, but Union East, the one I like, the one price-wise has gone for, winner of the December Gold Cup. Now, I'm well aware Dynast beat him comfortably, but I think I've bored everyone silly on Twitter with my theory on Dom Alco's. They need 8 miles, let alone 2.5. I think 3 miles here is only going to suit, and I can see him in more that grinding mould, outstaying Dynast. Well, that's my theory anyway.
Well, it does offer you a really good contrast, this race. I think this is why it's quite a good shape for it anti-post-wise, because you've got the speed of Dynast and the class of Dynast in against what you'd say was the more traditional kind of RSA winner, and that brings in your Union East, it brings in Graham's slow boat, Boston Bob, and Back in Focus. No, I'm not being disparaging, but they are of a certain kind of horse.
Yeah, the type that usually wins this race, Watsy, that's the thing.
Granted they normally do, but for punters, that's a big decision they have to make, whether they want to decide with the speed of Dynast or they want to go with a more traditional route horse. Union East, like you said, will improve for 3 miles. He's a half-brother to My Will, who was placed in the Grand National, so it seems perfectly obvious that he's going to thrive over 3 miles. What he's done over 2.5 is just a bonus so far. And of the ones in the betting behind Dynast, he's the one I would fear most, because he's got 8.5 lengths to find with Dynast, but over an extra half mile I expect that margin to be reduced, and Dynast will need to stay very well, to win the race. Rocky Creek, again, he's another one who's, shown decent form, done nothing wrong, he seems to be improving. Yeah, but I would view, out of the Nicholls 2, I would fancy Union East more, because 3 miles, he's going to love it, and I'm sure he's going to win at the weekend, and he'll shorten up even more.
Okay, well, on the theme of horses that just stay all day then, Nick, I mean, have you got one to shake up the market protagonist here?
Yeah, I think so. There's one Irish horse who seems to be massively overpriced to me, and that's Lyrene Legend. Very good novice hurdle last season, won a Grade 2, was second behind the likes of Monksland, not beaten far by Boston Bob. And yet Boston Bob is, what, 6-7 to 1, and Lyrene Legend is hanging out there at 40 to 1. That tends to suggest he's a rag, and he's anything but a rag. He won really well on his Chase debut at Galway. He was second at Punchestown, behind Back in Focus, not beaten very far at all, gave him a real fright that day. And then Desi Hughes sent him for the Grade 1 over Christmas, and he was bang there 3 out, and it's so annoying that he just tipped up there, because I'd love to have seen where he finished. I don't think he would have been very far away at all, because he was travelling really well. It was a bit of a perler, so that's a worry. He goes to the PJ Moriarty this weekend. Have to hope that hasn't left a lingering mark on him. If it hasn't, and he runs a decent race at the weekend, hopefully Desi Hughes will bring him over, because this is just the type of horse who could play a part in the RSA. Massive price, 40 to 1. It's a stupid price. He shouldn't be anywhere near that price.
Well, indeed, the trainer actually said in his weekender article that he thinks he's the best 3-mile chaser he's ever trained. So that speaks volumes of what he thinks then. And Graham, we know you're a Boston Bob fan, but is anything left of field here we haven't mentioned which you think can make the shake-up?
I'm just think of all the great 3-mile chasers that Desi Hughes has trained in my life. I can't think of too many. Lord Windermere is the one that I want to put in there at a big price. Going back a long way, he reminds me of a horse that Jim Carlotti used to ride. I don't know whether it's because he's got a similar name, but Lord Noailly, who won this race in 2000. And this has got a similar profile, quite lightly raced, over shorter trips, but has run into some good horses, run into Dylan Ross over 2 miles, then run into Michael Dagenais over 2.5, then finished, then won at Leopardstown next time in a quite a decent race that was thrown up. I think the 4th came out and was beaten very narrowly next time. And the way Lord Windermere won that day at Leopardstown, he was off the bridle for quite a way out, and then came through really, really strongly in the manner of a horse that will really improve for a step up in trip.
Lord Windermere in front. They're getting tired. Maristonian is closing with every stride, but Lord Windermere and Tom Doyle will hold on to win it. Lord Windermere beats Maristonian. Third home is done.
He did go up in trip next time, but only to 2 mile 5 furlongs, where he finished second behind Texas Jack, beaten half a length. Another decent run. He's being brought along in a very Henrietta Knight mould by Jim Carlotti. He's being trained as though he's a real top prospect. He hasn't looked to overface him. He hasn't put him in against horses that he can't compete with. He hasn't even put him up to his optimum distance yet. His optimum distance will be 3 miles, and if Carlotti decides to bring him, which it looks like he's going to, I think that'll be a tip in itself, and he's a 25 to 1 chance Lord Windermere. I can see him running really well.
Okay, so just to sum up then, Nick, you are from early season Dynast, but now you think at the current prices, Lyrene's Legend.
Yeah, I think Dynast will win, although we're going to have to wait for a very late decision from David Pipe as to which race he goes for. I think if he does point him in this race, then I think he'll win, but I think the best value is Lyrene Legend at 40 to 1.
And G-Rod, Boston Bob to turn over Dynast with Lord Windermere running on to a place?
Yeah, it's a slow boat, Boston Bob for me, according to Watsy anyway.
Well, my Warriors are Union East and Lyrene's Legend. I think that'll give you a cracking run for your money. So many thanks for watching. We hope we've pointed you in the right direction. See you all again soon.